Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, young runner. Happy birthday to you. Mwah! Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is Derek Young Runner Johnson's birthday. He's everybody's favorite player on the circuit because he's the only one who is keeping us absolutely up to date with his off-season workout schedule. He's going to be a terror on the field this year, and he's such an adorable man. That's why he got this very, very sexy and sensual happy birthday song to start off the second podcast of 2015. We have with us, of course, Matt Admin Kemp on, in the background, not really paying much attention because, well, he's letting me and Adrock do all the loud noises this go around. And, of course, we also have Adam Adrock Morowski. Say hello, Adam.
Hi, guys.
Hey. Can I take this off yet?
You're really red. No, you got to wear the blue or purple.
Yeah.
For like 5 more minutes until we realize that the new... Actually, what's the name of the show?
Nobody knows. I think it came down between the Padcast and Encroachment and the Kickback.
All right, so we're not deciding. We're just going to let it sit out there and let the audience tell us what to pick? Or...
You know what? We should actually set up a vote. Somebody who's good with computers, like on the Facebook or whatever, set up a vote of which of those three it's going to be called. Padcast, Encroachment, the podcast that crosses.
That's your final three. All righty then.
Kickback. Yeah. So as we know, we started off with the birthday announcement for Derek Young Runner Johnson, whose birthday is tomorrow on Monday. But we also have some other kickball birthdays that we should pay attention to, because if we're going to be doing this podcast every week, we might as well let you know who's getting too old to play the game. So later this week, I believe on Thursday, Phil Preventure from Shockwave, he gets old. And then on Friday, Kellen Miller of Cobra Kai, he also gets old. Now, you know what? Just saying happy birthday to them isn't enough. This is kickball. So I tell you what, if you see them, not only should you wish them a happy birthday, you should peg them in the face with a kickball. Well, I think that's probably a fair rule, that if you're playing a sanctioned game and you peg somebody in the face on their birthday, so long as you say, happy birthday, bitch, and like peg them in the face, that shouldn't make them automatically, that should count as an out regardless of the fact that it's a headshot. Matt, Adam, what do you think? Is that a fair rule?
I think I'm thoroughly creeped out by you ranting in a blue wig, man.
It's the only one we had. We don't have the blonde wig anymore, and we couldn't find the red one.
All right. I'm okay with pegging in the face all the time. I think we should legalize it in 2016.
Yeah, it'll be a rule. We'll put it in.
This is awesome.
Doing?
4 minutes in, I don't think we've talked about kickball at all. I'm taking this off. This is making my head itch.
That's fine.
I'm surprised you don't have a pearl necklace on.
Like a real pearl necklace or a pearl necklace? Are you being dirty? Are you crossing the line?
So you're gonna put the wig on the ball?
There we go.
Wow.
Yay.
Speaking of pearl necklaces, how about this women's tournament coming up? That ought to be pretty good.
This is not helping our progressive our progressive attempts here at Kickball 365. Yeah, way to keep it classy there, Adam. Yes, there are many girls tournaments going on this year, and we had actually, I think, arguably the first tournament of 2015 yesterday, a girls tournament right down here in Los Angeles, here on the West Coast. It is not an officially circuit-sanctioned event. It is the second year in a row that Stephen and Cora Ozier have run this tournament. It is called the Jingle Balls Tournament, which last year it was great because it happened in December. This year, the Jingle Balls Tournament happened in the middle of January. So a timely fitting name there, you guys. Very, very Christmassy for the second week in January.
Good name.
Good name. Good name. So yeah.
How many teams showed up?
There were only 7, which is, light for a tournament, but considering it is the second week in January, 7 I think is a pretty reasonable number. Everybody's still kind of coming off their holiday hangovers and not really not really making the effort to get out and play too much ball. But they did get 7 teams.
Mostly from the LA market or from all throughout the state, or at least the southern part?
Entirely LA market. I think sometimes we'll get some of the San Diego people come up, and I think we'll occasionally get some Santa Barbara or San Francisco people come down. But this tournament is almost exclusively Los Angeles, Long Beach area. The little SoCal cluster where we all play kickball.
Adrock, are you admiring your beard while we talk women?
Yeah. Yeah. You caught me.
I'm sorry. That was distracting. So 7 teams, the LA market played 365 rules. Did you see some talent that we didn't see last year? You see some new team names? Ho-Hos, Motley Crue, Taco Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday, like a movie reference. Sister Act, Motley Crue.
All new names, but a lot of the same faces from the West Coast. None of the normal teams that are known nationally played in their natural national tour form. But many players from the circuit down there playing, and in some cases coaching. For example, Athletes is a variation on Mathletes, which is a girls' team that plays a fair bit in Southern California. I think they've done a little bit of traveling too, but don't quote me on that. That team has it's captained by Amy McWethy from Sofa King, so obviously a known player on the tour. Ho, yes. Ho-Ho-Hos is a combination of players from Girl Problems, or is it Girl Trouble? I can never remember. Girl something, and Beaver Fever.
Well, let me ask you, going back on the question with Mathletes. So last year we had 5 women's events on the national tour. This year we've got at least 8. Vegas being the first one, not confirmed again. Don't buy your flights. Vegas permits are not in hand. We'll let everybody know the moment we are confirmed and ready to go. Vegas being a women's event. Atlanta already registration open, already having 3 teams flying VJs. Shut Up and Play and the #1 Stunnas are signed up. Austin is not a women's event. Jacksonville, San Francisco, D.C., Denver confirmed in July. New York City hopefully comes through. San Diego, Nashville, and Dallas are all women's events. So we got 8, which is 8 crazy weekends of kickball. Last year we thought a lot of the women's teams were going to kind of play in these local events and then try to merge to go to the women's championship. This year's circuit championship, women's division championship, is going to hopefully see more than 16 teams. Are we going to see, let's say, the first West Coast event, the Vegas event? Are we going to see Bob, Dirty, Ho-Ho-Hos, Motley Crue, Taco Tuesdays? Or are we going to see like 4 teams all merged together from the LA market, or even 1?
I think it's more likely that you'll see some merged teams go over. I don't know if it'll filter all the way down to 1 single team. I think it'll be merged teams. But then you're also asking me to make some sort of prediction about the constant Southern California kickball incest with everybody shifting teams, and it's a mess. I can't predict anything this early in the year as to who's going to be playing where. And even if I did, I guarantee the predictions would be wrong.
And then Adrock up in New York City, are you seeing a couple new women's teams grow? Even with your connection down with Texas, are they growing? Are they merging?
I know that the girls, the Relaxed Bitches, were real into the whole women's thing. A couple of them said that they were thinking about, retiring, becoming adults like you, and but the women's events really got their interest back into kickball, and I think a lot of them are going to be playing a little longer now because of that.
Well, I hope that's the case. I mean, 8 events, 8 solid events. A lot of folks have been asking to do women's events on Saturday, only do women's events on the weekends. I think, folks, we're still a very small startup. Steven's not on yet. He should be on later tonight if we have him. And resources are always a big thing with this company, and we want to make sure we put forth the best effort. But 8 events is going to be a hell of a good time, that's for damn sure. And just in case no one's heard, sorry to talk business, but coaches are free to sign up. So if you're a coach, male coach, women coach, and you want to play in one of these women's events, there's a coach's policy that defines that you're free. So if you have questions, email us or talk to us on Facebook. All coaches are free for the year.
Good.
Yeah.
I think that's handy. There was obviously a fair bit of discussion last year as to whether there should be male coaches on the women's team or if the women should coach themselves. I will confess that I was last year of the camp that let the ladies coach themselves. You don't need us guys coming in and messing all the shit up again. But having watched a few of the women's events now. I don't know that it's necessarily you guys have to have a male coach, but the one thing that a male coach thing that does on the women's team is an outside non-playing coach is extraordinarily valuable. And that's not just with the women events. I imagine that would probably be the case with co-ed as well. I mean, can we think of any co-ed teams that have a non-playing coach? Oh, that's right. The Circuit Cup champion situation. So there's a lot of value, I think, to the non-playing coach. And because of that, my whole thing is like, all right, fine, let the guys coach the women. It's okay.
The situation coach is Edge, right?
Yes, Edge, the coach of situation.
Yeah.
Which it would be good. I want to see. I didn't get a copy of their lineup for the Circuit Cup Championships, but the first tournament that I play and you do the commentation for with situation playing, I want a copy of their kicking order because I fully expect it to be Edge, 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 Scott, Edge, 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 Blake, Edge, 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 and Edge. Obviously coached and captained by Edge, and. Wow, that's going to cause a big fight. If they win another tournament and Kickball 365 writes the check out to Edge,
that's pretty funny.
That's going to cause some fights.
On the topic of player coaches, just coaches in general, we had a serious discussion on our team about having a person that doesn't play full-time coach because when you're in the heat of the moment, it's hard to wear the two hats and do it correctly for both.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the coach would, situationally, he'll tell you what to do so you don't have to stop gameplay, which slows the day down. He sees things you don't because you're in the moment, and we kind of agree that might be the way to go.
Wait, okay, so the women's tour and the women's tournaments had male coaches who were non-playing, and it caused us to open our eyes and realize really the strong value of non-playing coaches. Did we learn something from the ladies? This feels kind of like a Hallmark moment. Like, I feel like the guy who was like, no, you need to, make my whiskey and be in the secretary's pool. And then she comes up and, runs the company better than I ever did. And I learned a valuable lesson, and everybody's happy, and there's the happy music when the credits roll. Is that what happened here?
I do think it opened our eyes for the coaches, at least, where on the co-ed side we just didn't see the concept of coaches. I mean, there's always been LaSalle. Everyone's always, worn the captain's band, and that's your coach. And like Pat Adrock just said, some teams have discovered that there's value to just only having one guy, or up to two in this case, because there's a cap of max of two. And why there's a max is lessons learned from the past, where if we have three non-playing coaches on the field engaging with the refs, engaging with the players, it gets a little chaotic when a call is questioned by players and refs and coaches and captains, and we like to kind of simplify things because our refs are volunteers. We don't have stands, so we can't keep everyone back, so we try to minimize the amount of people talking to our refs when trying to make a decision to keep the gameplay going. But yeah, I definitely think coaches might be something that are changing in the future. I don't know of any other leagues that really recognize coaches as one is a free spot, but then two is the one individual. So
yeah,
I think the biggest hurdle for that on the co-ed is that despite the fact that many of us are getting old and out of shape and horrible at the game, we still want to keep playing, which I think makes things. And I think right now that's probably the biggest sticking point to being a dedicated non-playing coach.
Well, I'd like to reference Babe Ruth and compare him to myself in the fact that towards the end of his career, he was a player coach.
Yeah, but wasn't he also fat, drunk, and killed a hooker once? Because that sounds exactly like you.
Yeah, but I don't smoke cigars.
Why not? You should start.
All right. Well, I think I might go the Bill Clinton method.
Ooh, ew.
Oh, anyway. What do you think the big draw here with the popularity of the women's events? I think they went off last year, honestly.
They surprised us immensely. I was trying to look up a definition of male coaches. It's been amazing just to see the level of interest, the amount of questions the companies received, the amount of folks that didn't hear about our certain women's events, earlier in the year, and they might have missed a city, so they asked us to come host another event. We don't add in the middle of the year. It's just not what we've done in the past. Once the schedule is released, that's what we tend to go with. So obviously with 8 cities, we wanted to make up for the demand we observed throughout the year. It was shocking. Georgia, had 16 teams. Jacksonville had 15, I think. DC had up to 16. Kansas City was the only city where we just didn't see the demand. But yeah, the feedback and the level of interest for these events has been great, and we hope the numbers continue to stay strong.
And you guys are kidding, right? You're both idiots. Of course this is going to be popular. I mean, the main reason that the women's events have been so strong is because they want to play. I mean, I don't think there's any big mystery about it. I think the larger mystery is the currently sort of undiscussed fact that in the co-ed side of things, women are marginalized in this game. The way it's put together, they do not see the playing time on the field that the guys do, and so with an all women's event, they get the playing time. They get to be out there every inning. They get multiple ad kicks. They get to play the key positions where the plays are happening. Of course there's going to be interest, and I think there's going to be more interest this coming year because, as you said, a lot of people did it last year, and I think a lot of the ladies really, really enjoyed it. I mean, how many times have we started to see women coming to the tournaments to play only in the women's events and not in the co-ed events?
We did see that as well. I think, what I focus on is most teams will bring 5 women to an event. And on an average event, let's just say 16 teams, you got 80 women coming. So immediately when we were thinking about it, we didn't think there'd be that many teams in the beginning. Yes, there are a lot of women across the country who play this sport as the adult social kickball. But I just never realized how many were actually be willing to travel. I didn't think the numbers were that high. I thought it would take a while, so we'd see 1 or 2 teams grow. The fact that the conversation was focused on teams would be condensing and converging into uber teams on the first year was a little concerning. It didn't happen that way. I mean, if you've got 7 showing up for a local event in LA, that's phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what Vegas brings us.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you looked at the math the wrong way. All of the co-ed teams bring 5, maybe 6 ladies, and then you've got 80 there who can be a part of the girls' tournament the next day. But the part that you didn't pay attention to is the fact that the next day there's an entire tournament for just the ladies. There are people who weren't on those co-ed teams. They're going to travel because they're going to play. One of the reasons that they didn't travel with the other teams is because, well, not going to get as much playing time. It's not worth the expense.
That's my point.
If there's a tournament where you're going to be out on the field for 5 innings and have 2 or 3 kicks per game, and sometimes even more than that, because we know we see a lot of offensive turnover in the ladies' tournaments, then of course it makes sense to drop the money to travel to these tournaments.
Yeah, and I think it actually helps the co-ed because girls are always the hardest to find, and I think there's a lot of times when the women were like, I don't want to go there, kick twice, catch 1 ball. Now they're going to be like, oh, I get to play a tournament the next day. I'll make a weekend out of it. So, I'm going to play in the co-ed, and then I got the women on Sunday.
Now, let me bring up another point, Patty. You just mentioned something that was flashbacks to year 0, year 1 of the circuit. So, Women's Open Championship this past year, VA Hustle in pool play, 4 games, 43 runs scored. Flying VJs, 44 runs scored. Mile High Club, the 8th team to get into the bracket, 37 runs scored. Runs allowed for Mile High, 26. Runs allowed for VA Hustle, 20. My point is there was a lot of scoring on both sides of the ball. We saw that in the circuit in year 1 and 2, or 0 and 1. Are we going to see the women's team's defenses start to pick up to keep the runs allowed down to like 1, 2, and 3 like we see in some of the co-ed games? Or are we going to continue to see high-scoring games regardless? Regardless.
Go ahead, Patty.
Well, I mean, it's a tough one to answer. I mean, I would say chances are the defenses are going to shore up a little bit, and the scoring is going to come down and even out a little bit more. I think that's probably what's going to happen because like you said, it was similar to the way co-ed kickball was very early on. Very very high scoring games. On both sides. And I think as time goes on, the women's scores will even out a little bit, so there won't be such incredible scores on both sides. Which interesting to note, the tournament yesterday, a lot of very very lopsided scores, yeah. And not necessarily based on the quality of the team. It was a sort of a game-to-game thing. The fields were wet. It was raining yesterday, so the fields were muddy and sloppy.
It rains in California?
Like 2 days a year, and yesterday was one of them. But so I mean, there were games where one team would go out and lose 1 run to 16, but then the immediate next game, that same team that lost would win 12-0. I mean, the high scoring aspect of the women's game as it currently stands right now, coupled with just the sheer unpredictability of the sloppy, muddy mess of the field, made for some really really interesting lopsided scores. I think the only game that was close at all throughout the day was the finals. And I think the final score on that was 7-5. Wow. So, but even then, that is a high-scoring game for a finals. I mean, if that were the score in a co-ed tournament finals, that would be a very anomalous score.
Yeah.
I think part of the reasoning, a couple reasons. First of all, the key positions, charger, catcher, pitcher. These girls have been playing it, some of these girls like maybe twice ever. It takes time to build, approach to the ball and angling with that. And I just think the way the ball's built, I just think it's a lot harder for a girl to throw a kickball, like regardless of how good they are, the cup. Like a guy can just palm the ball and just launch it, and I don't think there's a girl's hand on the circuit that could palm a kickball.
I've seen a couple.
Well, they're not throwing it as hard, but either way, it's just it's more exciting in that aspect because the ball is offensively doing the same thing, but the way, even from the outfield, getting the ball back in and even throwing it across the diamond to first is a whole different speed than the men's game.
Yeah, but the women, they've picked the whole relay to first, relay to second. Some of those teams have got that strategy down, and it's just phenomenal to watch. Awesome to watch them execute on some of those relays to first or plays to second just to get the runner going from first to second. They've done very well with execution.
I think one thing that's definitely going to change here soon is I think the pitching is going to start to get really good. I think the girls are going to figure it out, and the pitching is going to be more dominant going forward.
Yeah, it's funny. If you look at folks who are watching this and maybe have never, just new to the conversation with, well, why don't you get a smaller ball, or why don't you move the lineup, or why don't you whatever to make it easier. The women, at least in I'm speaking on behalf of the votes and the results that we've read over the past year, is they don't want to change the game. Some of the girls come to our women's events and say, I'm doing this to get better for co-ed. Some of the women say, I don't want to do co-ed anymore. I just want the women, but I want the rules to remain the same for when I've been playing for the last couple of years. If the tide changes and people want us to tweak the rules, the rules committee does have a couple new female members. That announcement will be made soon. So we'll constantly get their feedback, and even without people on the rules committee, we'll constantly be pinging folks through Facebook and through our surveys to ask if they want us to change anything. But they take advantage of the situation they got, and they make it work for them.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope in future years we see every event as both a co-ed and a women's tournament because there's just such a blast. One final note about the tournament yesterday, and this is a interesting business discussion. There was a prize for the champion, and the prize was handed out in the form of cash.
No, thank you.
As opposed, no, thank you. Oh, well, you're afraid to carry that much cash around?
No.
You can find some thugs to protect you in that cash. It was fun though. After the championship was over, the cash being passed around, the women making it rain amongst themselves. It was a fulfillment of a strange kickball fantasy that I've had for some time.
Well, I now have
it's gonna be a lot of fun this year. There's gonna be a lot of events. All of the 12 cities, all but 3 are gonna be women's events. Chicago, Vegas is on the edge right now. I mean, Vegas is definitely a women's event. Chicago is not, with it being a social event. Sure. But it's going to be a hell of a year. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see how the women's division of the circuit evolves after the first year. And hopefully we see a lot of new teams in a lot of these markets that we didn't have a chance to compete in last year. And I have a feeling we're going to see a couple DC teams go out west for Vegas if it works out. We're going to see a lot of teams from hopefully in the west travel out east. It should be a lot of fun.
Should be.
And Adrock is combing his beard to sign us off. Beard.
We started off the podcast with me having blue hair, and Adrock is finishing it by combing his red lumberjack. What color is your? Yeah, I didn't realize.
Light brown.
Yeah, it looks kind of.
It looks a
little gingery. You might want to go hit that with the Grecian formula there, buddy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I want to talk about this week. Anybody else got anything?
That's great. We're going to put up that vote for the name on Facebook sometime in the near short-term future. We appreciate you watching.
Until next time.
See you next week, guys.